When the search committee came back with the news that they had found someone, and that someone was Carter, and eventually Carter was installed as the minister, I had my doubts. Could he live up to the high standard that I had set before? Well, Carter certainly exceeded those. Certainly a real blessing to this church. And again,
use the mic.
Yeah, sorry. As was said before, God's timing is always perfect, and Carter's really the perfect fit, as far as I can see, for the place we are now, and where we are going. Carter, come on.
Can I just thank you guys for coming tonight? It's really exciting to see people from our past and to read about our history and to know that the story is far older, far longer, far richer than just the last 5-6 years that I've been involved in it. So I just want to give you guys a hand for coming and thank you. It's been really neat as we have been preparing for this event. And Gene and Linda have put together that document that some of you have picked up. And by the way, if you haven't picked up a document that's out there on the table, it records the 30 years of history for Cornerstone. So please pick that up on your way out. I was sent that a couple of versions as he and Linda were preparing that and getting to read through the history and learning things about this church that I really didn't know. And one thing that stuck out to me as I read through that document was that Cornerstone has a history of having highs and lows. There are times where there was great enthusiasm and energy for ministry and new initiatives and things like that. And then there were times when it looked like the doors might close, as Buck was mentioning one of those. And that seemed to be somewhat of a theme. And that can be a hard thing. And as you look at the life of Cornerstone, the fact that we're here tonight and celebrating 30 years, you have to draw the conclusion that, well, the only reason that we're here is because God is faithful. He is a faithful God, and that's really the theme as we look through church history. God is faithful even when his people don't know what they're doing. Even when his people are struggling to get through, God is the one thing that remains steady and on track. And I am convinced that as long as this church continues to have its foundation built upon Jesus Christ, as he is revealed in the scriptures, that God will carry us through. God's faithfulness would continue to persevere this church into the city of Katy, to continue to knock down the gates of hell so that the captives are set free. That will be a thing that will happen, not because of the great speakers that preachers might be or the great ministries that may be launched, but simply because Jesus Christ is the foundation. He is the cornerstone to which this church is built. So that's been very exciting to me. But you have to know some things about remembering the past and history if you're going to survive and not grow into despair and make your way into the future. And I want to tell you just a couple of stories. One's my own and one's stories that you'll be familiar with from the Old Testament to try to help illustrate this a little bit. When I came 6.5 years ago and decided to put my name as a candidate for this position at the request of Scott Wilkins' brother Mark in Oklahoma City, I didn't know really what to think about this church. I really didn't know what to think about even the denomination. I was not from this denomination. It was from a sister denomination, but not this particular one. So it was somewhat of a mystery to me. And coming here and talking with people and having a lot of my own questions about who this group is was very helpful for me. Because anytime you're making a big decision, we are instructed by the Lord to evaluate our decisions in light of what is God's will. We want to know, what is God's will? You're going to Kazakhstan, so you're asking, what is God's will? Do I go or do I not go? And the first thing you ask when you're measuring your desires or your decisions about following God's will is not going into your closet and flipping a magic coin, finding out if it lands heads or tails, this is what I'm going to do. That's not what it means. It simply means measuring your choices up against what God has already revealed in his word. God has revealed in his word that churches are Christ's creation, that churches are supplied and equipped because God has given them pastors and teachers, apostles and prophets, to be the ones to equip them, the church, the people of God, for the work of ministry. Okay, well, that's clear. God wants to supply his church with people. I'm coming from a particular place with a variety of pastoral experience, serving in a couple of different churches, and have a theological education, which at the time I wasn't quite sure what God was doing with me there, although I didn't ever want to leave. You ever have that experience? You don't ever want to leave school, you just want to stay there. It's very comfortable. But that was my situation in seminary. But anyway, the two came together. Okay, here I am. I've been trained, I've been equipped, I've served and have some experience. Here's a church that God's looking to supply a pastor. Okay, revealed will of God lines up. But you know, sometimes we're not very faithful as people. And we need more of a kick in the pants than just the revealed will of God to do that. So we do things like Gideon did in the Old Testament. If you're familiar with the story of Judges and how God had raised up this man Gideon to be the rescuer from the Midianites who were infiltrating the Jewish people, the Israelites, and taking all of their grain. So here he's hiding out, threshing his grain, and God speaks to him, saying, I'm going to raise you up to be the deliverer. But Gideon is very doubtful. I don't know if I can be this man, God. So he says, will you give me some very specific signs? And of course those signs were, putting out a fleece and asking God to make the fleece wet in the dry ground, and then vice versa. So God does. He condescends and he provides these affirmations to Gideon to show them, yes, this is my will that you do this. Now, I didn't have any Gideon fleece. I didn't have any fleeces I put out, but certainly there were things going on in my life that came together at just that time that were confirmation to me, very clear confirmation that, yes, I need to come. And that was a very helpful thing, and I'll tell you why. When I came, to me, it looked like Cornerstone was in a position to just explode in growth. Bob had left a legacy of Christ-centered preaching. There was a solid group who loved each other. I came and asked this group here as I was interviewing. I said, why do you guys not just disband and go to other churches? Why do you stay together? And the answer from everyone was unanimously was because we love each other. Well, that's a pretty good thing, to have a group that loves each other, to have a legacy of Christ-centered preaching from all of the pastors, from what I'm aware of, going back from the time this church was started. I look at Cornerstone. It's positioned on a main thoroughfare of Katy, which is reportedly to be one of the fastest growing cities in the country. They've got the remnants of this massive, thriving youth group. What else and kind of human ingredient could you need, right? All I got to do is put a better sign on the street corner, and not preach heresy, and people will come, and the doors will just be blown up. Well, I came, and that didn't happen. Instead, what we saw is at the end of that first year, we had a budget crunch. Our numbers remained fairly steady and the same, but in terms of finances, our budget was going down, and we had to, for example, cut out our Mother's Day Out program. That was difficult. Our youth group that had once been very sizable, a lot of those guys were graduating out, and there really wasn't anyone from the junior high ranks to fill in the gaps of where they were leaving off. And we had a part-time youth director when I came on board, and he left a year later to go pursue, it was a temporary thing he wanted to do. He went to pursue a career in his line of his college major, John Weitzel, which was fine. We also had a case of church discipline that hit the church hard. It was difficult to deal with. And then our children's director left as well. So all of these things just kind of compiled together. And it was very hard. And I look back and I think, if we had gone through that just now, I probably would have been in utter despair. But at the time I wasn't. I have no way to explain that other than God was being faithful to me. And the thing that carried me through those hard times was simply knowing that God had called me to be here. It was those little things, like the Gideon fleece moments. A lot of people call those, that was a God thing. That was a God thing, right? That was a God thing. That help us get through the hard times.